Well, good morning and welcome back to another Jack's Tech Corner. This is episode number 51 for Sunday, March 25th, 2012. Coming up in today's show, editor basics. You know, we talked about getting back to the basics a few weeks ago with our photography and holding the camera and doing different camera tactics and skills. Now I thought we'll go back to the basics a little bit in the editor. We're going to look at the quick edit and the guided edit. So if you struggle with elements, this is a good place for you to be this morning to get you started. Also, we're going to create a soft focus, or what's known as a shallow depth of field. We're going to do that in the camera and in the editor. So I'm going to teach you both ways to do it. And then we're going to look at some basic workflow to clean up a picture and enhance it. So I think all of that, we should be able to get all that in today. If not, as always, we'll push it to the following week, but we'll see what happens. Then we're going to have our tribute to layers at the end of the show. I got that set up and ready to go for you. It was a great assignment, and everybody out there did a great job. So let's go ahead and get started this week with Photography Weekly, episode number 51. Okay, guys, very good. We got the opener rolling there. Let's go back here now. We're going to take a peek at the chat room and see who's in there this morning. And give our official shout-outs before we get started here with the official show. Or the official lessons, anyway, let's say that way. So, good morning to Cheryl, who was our early riser this morning, who took the top of the list there. You can see these lists pretty much as you come in, they pretty much are set up to bring you into the show based on when you connected. So good morning, Cheryl, Andy, Brian, Debbie, Fabian, Flyer here, Hugh, Jake the Snake, Jenny9, Janine, or Janine, or somebody said to call her J9, however you want to say that, Jody, Judy, Kevin, Mike, Serena, and Vicky. So we're going to go ahead and switch over here to the other computer, and we're going to start talking about the editor. Now this is Photoshop Elements, as I said. It's what we learned a lot of here in the group. Also, just as a footnote, Photoshop CS6, I'm sure you heard by now, was released in beta this past week. A lot of us have been downloading it and playing around with it. We played around with it a lot last night on the PSP show, or even the Hangout. We actually played a little bit. And we're learning some quirks it might have, but that's new software. That's why it's in beta, because it's not supposed to work as well as it should when it's released. So it's just, the preview. So they want you to see those bugs and possibly email them and say, hey, there's a bug. Something's not quite right. So if you're coming out with a problem, email that to Adobe and let them know. And when you do, tell them you're part of Jack's Tech Corner photography group and you found it. And then report it. That way, we'll get noted on their box, Yeah, no, we won't. All right. Anyway, guys, let's go ahead. I'm going to switch cameras here. We're going to get started right away because we have a lot of information to cover. All right. So what we're looking at here, first of all, is we're going to look at some, just some quick edits here we can do. Because I've been playing around a lot this week with, this week and last week, actually, with Lightroom. And learning more about Lightroom. But everybody knows that I'm a big fan of elements. So it gives me a chance to come back to elements and show you some of the same kind of things, the same kind of workflow that we have in, actually I'm taking these out right now. It gives us some of that same workflow that we have in Lightroom that's in Photoshop Elements. Maybe not all of it, but enough of it where I can't tell you to go ahead and buy one and have that one and have this one and have all of those. So I can't see the reasoning for that when elements will do so much. And in talking to a few of you last night on the Google Hangout, it opened my mind up to say that, Jack, people are still using the organizer in Elements. So Elements must be a pretty full-featured program because there's a great organizer. We've taught that. We all learned it, and we've used it. There's a great workflow because you can import your raw images. Now, that I wouldn't say is as fast, but you can. And when you open those in the organizer to go into the editor, you can make your final adjustments there. So there is a lot of it there. But this is just more or less taking a JPEG this morning, and we're just going to do some quick edits to it just to show you that you too can learn Elements. Elements is not hard. Don't let this be, this isn't brain surgery, or this isn't, some kind of a, where you have to come in here and be a software engineer to work this software. Come on, folks. I mean, if I could figure it out, I've been doing this now for the past, I've been working in Elements probably for the better part of 8 years, maybe, I guess. Through the different versions. Every year it's a new version. I have to learn a couple tools, but it's really not that hard. Let's go ahead first. We're going to look right here at this particular picture, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to start going through some workflow here. The first thing I noticed when I opened this picture, and hopefully you can see it, there's some dots around here. Now that could be whatever. I mean, that could have been dust on my lens. It probably was. But we want to remove those first. Before we do anything else, I'm just going to remove those, and then we're going to go into the quick edit and show you how we're going to make some edits with this to make it really interesting, and I thought it was really cool how it works. So what I like using is the spot healing brush, and if content aware is on up here, all we got to do is just pull our mouse right over there. You can actually get rid of those dots. Just like so. If you need a bigger brush, use your left and right bracket key. Get rid of those. So again, there's no secret to how to do this. You just click your mouse and pull over some areas there. If you're not real happy with those, see how those are lighter? I'm not real happy with that. So what I can use then is my clone stamp tool. It's one of my old trusty favorites. Now to use this tool, we're going to hold down the Option key if you've never used this tool before. And you're going to see a little bullseye. Hopefully you can see that there. Yeah, okay. So you should be able to see that there. Little bullseye. I'm just trying to see if it's showing up on the actual picture. But you click it and then you just click over top of the things that you want to get rid of. So I think that works pretty a lot better for bigger areas. Again, just click it where you want to click over there. Okay, so again, that's just some basic little edits there. Now, with that said, we are going to go now right into the quick edit panel, and I'm going to show you how that works. Now, with a few little mouse strokes, and yes, Jody, so far this is just Elements. This is nothing else but Elements. I'm sorry, I turned to the chat room. I know I'm not supposed to do that. So we are now going to make a few adjustments here, and you can go here, and these are auto fixes. And I really wasn't impressed, but let's click on one of the auto fixes and see what happens. Now, what it did right away, it takes everything and it assumes, for some reason, somebody at Adobe assumed one day that when we write these programs, we need to write these programs because everybody wants to make their exposure brighter, and everybody wants to make their highlights brighter, make their temperatures cooler, make their saturations deeper. And that is not all photography people. Everybody has their own taste. And talking to, and everybody watches the Facebook group that's on here, I'm pretty sure, but in talking to Fabian, you'll know that he likes to lower his saturation a little bit. He likes to lower it just a little bit to give it more detail. And then he likes to take his exposure and bring that down also. He likes it a little darker, and I actually did one the other day like that, a portrait I shot. I was pretty impressed. So I don't like that auto. Everything's too bright for me. I mean, it's pretty, but it's not what we want. So let's go down here and hit reset. Now, what I thought was nice about this tool is on the left, it has some very basic things that you'll probably want to use. One is the move tool. So we can, if you have two layers here or something, you can move stuff around. So that's a move tool. Next is the quick selection tool and the selection brush. And that allows us to do things like make quick selections. Like if you wanted to make a selection of these trees. And what that allows you to do when you're editing, and I'm sure a lot of you have done this before, but many of you have not, you can select just those trees, and we can come over here, and we can work with things like saturation. We'll pull it up. And you'll see in there how those trees are turning more red, so you're working with the very detailed area. That's what selections allow us to do. It's hard to make dead trees look good, right? We'll reset that. We'll just undo this. All right. Let's reset that. The next thing I thought was really cool in here is, well, the cropping tool. So you can crop things down because that's very basic edits. This is easy stuff we do all the time. Red eye removal, which I'm sure none of you have that anymore. That's old school. We don't really deal with red eye anymore. The toothbrush, if you want to whiten teeth, that's interesting for a quick touch-up of a portrait, but they don't give you anything else, which is kind of weird. This one here, and playing with this, I thought this is really cool. Bluer skies. And what this is basically doing is it's basically just a smart brush. So if you're in the full editor and you've done this before, you're using a smart brush in the quick edit. And we'll just come up here and we just select the sky. And look how blue it made that sky. If there's a problem, which I see a problem, it shouldn't be making these trees any bluer. So let's get away from these trees. Something like that. So I thought that's pretty cool. It looks pretty nice. Then once you're done, go up here to select, hit deselect. And now it's a lot bluer. And again, at this point, we have made nothing as far as we made absolute no changes on the picture itself, and we never even duplicated the layers or anything like that. This is just very basic. The next here is a black and white, and this is nice because it's just a very easy black and white tone. See, it's black and white and it's high contrast. Let's go right across here, just like so. So again, it's very easy to do. It's very quick and easy. Now, the next thing you can see here with the lighting, you have all these different levels and stuff. If you click on one of those and don't like it, I wouldn't use the reset button because it resets the picture. I would just use the undo button. Now you can play with the overall saturation. You can see since only the lake is selected, that's what we're playing with, is the lake with the blacks. And the sharpness. Go back here, we're going to deselect everything. And now you can start playing with your shadows and your midtones. So again, if you remember this, the actual editor itself, this is very, very quick edits. It's very easy, but it gets you, I think, over the fear of editing your pictures. So now with that said, I want to take you into the guided edit. So we're going to use a different picture and I'm going to show you the guided edit. And also when we're learning the guided edit, we're going to be talking about that blurring the background and changing that shallow depth of field, or making it a shallow depth of field, and how you do that. And if you're not familiar with that, I'm going to show you a picture here. Let's go back to the full editor. This is a picture here, obviously, that needs a little bit of editing. We're going to touch this up a little bit. We are not, but I will later. Now, this particular picture right here is was taken with a shallow depth of field. I did that by using my 70 by 200 millimeter lens. And what happens is you're changing the lens, the focal length, as well as the aperture settings. That's what we're going to talk about here very soon. But first I'm going to show you how to do this in Editor and how to make this work just by editing. So if you don't have the lenses or whatever, and you know, there's no excuse for not doing this. Please pay really close attention to this because there could be a lesson or an assignment coming out of this. So here we have a basic picture here I took a while back. I am going to go ahead and duplicate the background of this one. And we're going to start with the spot healing tool here. And the only thing I want to do before we get started is I just want to get rid of this guy back here, this tower. Just like so. Alright. Again, if that doesn't work out for you, we'll just clone stamp it a little bit there. Alright. Now, with that said, what we're going to do now is we're going to go into the guided edit and we're going to look at a couple things in there. One, as I was playing around with this, I thought, you know, if we're teaching this, blurring the background, or changing the depth of field, then I'm going to show you how to do it in the editor, and then we're going to talk about how we do it in camera. I know that's a little backwards, but we're going to talk about that. Now, what it is now there's a lot of ways to do this, and I'm sure if you're familiar with Photoshop Elements, you're going to go, Jack, you're killing us, you're bothering us here. But the truth is, for the folks out there that are new to Elements that aren't sure how to use it, this is going to get you started a little bit. Because Elements opens in that full editor. Maybe it should open when you first use it. It should open up in the guided edit. Because it teaches you every step of a workflow all the way down through. All you got to do is pick what you want to do. And then you'll be able to actually make those adjustments. Now what we're going to do with this particular picture is we're going to do depth of field. We're talking about depth of field, and that's what we're going to do. So I just simply click on this. And it says here, add depth in a single step. Now, to do this, if we click on this, it's going to tell you, click the add blur button to add default blur. There's the default blur right there. Now, click and define the area for focus. Just drag over the image of the area in focus. So if we go here, and we're going to use the gradient tool for that. I don't know if it'll work side to side or not. That's not too bad. This way. And what I thought was neat with this tool is I can add it. Look how I'm adding it as I go along. If I don't have what I want captured or revealed, I can just add more here. And then you can increase the blur of the background. Let's do that. Let's just move this over. And we'll move it over some more. Just like that. Now the only thing I don't like about this way of doing it is look at the foreground right here, the grassy area. Then you can take this, if you use this gradient tool, you can just keep taking this over here. Well, it didn't work out for us that time. Let's reset it. But now I'm going to show you the way I like to do it, the one that works better for me. Reset it. Go back here, cancel. Back to depth of field. And now we're going to do it with the custom. We're going to do it more manually. So the first thing we're going to do is make a selection. I enjoy selecting because it gives me a chance to show you what I want to show. So right here. And just like that. Then take out what you don't need. And now that we have that done, we have it selected what we want. We're going to add blur. Now this is the same way you would do it in a full editor. You can already see the whole entire thing is getting blurred, except for this. It's staying very sharp and in focus. I can blur it more to make it more dramatic. And even more. So again, now you see, here, let's click on done here. Get back to our full edit. And now you can see that this has the same type of effect that this has. I did this one though in camera. This is all in camera. And we now did this in the editor. And yes, you can do people too. This just happened to be an object out in the middle of a field that I used. But you could do it either way you want to. Now, a true depth of field though would probably have all this front here unblurred. I just did that so I can really make it stand out. Probably what I would do with this to make it even more believable would be something like this. Just something like that, where you really have this sharp and in focus and everything behind it is kind of pushed back or blown out. So, and people do call it, you blew out the background is what they said. That's usually, to me, if you say you blew out the background, to me it's overexposed. But some people say, you really blew out the background. What they're really saying is you really have a good shallow depth of field and it looks really impressive. So that is basically very easy, and in the nutshell, both of those. It was showing you the quick edit, showed you the guided edit, and also was able to show you depth of field and how that works. So now we'll come back over here and we'll grab the chat window here and see if you guys have any questions. Uh-oh, somebody said good question, Brian. Let's see. I am going to go back up to the chat room now. So we're going to work on this to see what you guys are talking about. Hey, if you guys, somebody brought this up last night. If you're looking for my YouTube videos in the archives, look under 42 Techno Man. 42 Techno Man. And that tells you something. I started those videos when I was 42, which was a few years ago. But I've been doing it a long time, you know, and I look at this like, wow, I never thought this would come out of starting something so small. The only reason I started posting YouTube videos was because when I was looking, I get so tired of watching somebody's video. And this is what I hear. Da 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 digga 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 da da da. They're playing music real loud and they're clicking click 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 click. They're not teaching you anything. It's a waste of YouTube space. They should delete all those videos and throw those people off of YouTube. All they're doing is trying to brag that they can do something. That's all they're doing. My videos, I decided a long time ago to start something and create something that you can learn with. That's what I wanted to do. So that's how that came about some years ago. And now it turned into this whole Facebook group thing and these live shows and being with you folks on Sunday mornings and getting to talk more and more about cameras. Okay, so how do we end up getting in camera that shallow depth of field that so many people long to have, especially with portraits? And with portraits, it's a little tougher because here's a couple key elements to think about. And I was going to set up today a portrait in the studio. That takes a bit of work there, especially to get my daughter up here. My unpaid model, to get her in here working with me is tough in the mornings. When you're in your studio, especially when you have a studio in your house, such as I do, it's very hard to get that separation between the background and the subject. And you would like to have at least 5, maybe 6 foot separation. So you'd have to have your stool or the subject standing 5 or 6 foot away from that background to be able to start to take that background and get it to go into a soft focus or change the depth of field. And when somebody's on the background, the best bet that I found that I like to do is, just as a word of advice, I like shooting a flash up into the backdrop and lighting that backdrop up. That way it just throws a nice flash of light and it gives them some separation, but the background's still going to be seen, and that's just how it is when you're doing portraits close like that. Now, With that said, the next way we do it is with a small lens. You can do it with this lens. And this is my 50 millimeter fixed lens. And it's got a f-stop, or an aperture, of 1.8. Now it's fixed. You can't turn it. You don't zoom this lens. You move your feet in and out to get into the subject. But a 50 millimeter lens is a great portrait lens. And as you're getting closer, and that 50 millimeters being the 1.8, the aperture is low enough that you're going to change, and you're going to start to get that blurred background or change your depth of field. So that's one way of doing it with this lens. And as I said during the show, this lens was about $100 maybe. You get it for about $100. I don't know how much for the Canon one. This is the Nikon. But it works really, really good. It also really is nice to have this in your bag if you're shooting low light shots. I bought it, actually I bought it not for portraits because I didn't do any portraits at the time. I bought it because the girls playing basketball in the gymnasium. That's why I picked this lens up. Now, with that said, the shot that I just showed you a little bit earlier, I shot it with this lens. Now this lens is a much heavier lens. This is a 70 by 200 millimeter lens, which I just learned recently. Look at the opening of that. I just learned recently that this could be used for portraits, and I thought, wow, I bought this. One, it does great macros, but two, I bought it mainly for zooming, for my telephoto lens. That's why I bought this thing. Never did I think it would be a good portrait lens. The only thing is, with this collar on here, it probably weighs in a good 5-6 pounds. So I do like to shoot it without this. I mean, take your collar off. You don't need that on there. And then it makes it a little lighter because this collar does weigh. What these are nice for, these collars are nice because it has your tripod mount on the bottom. I'm actually taking this camera today with this lens. We're going to, I told you earlier, a musical, high school. And I'm going to shoot some video footage with my D7000. I told my wife it would definitely be better than the camcorder, that's for sure. So I am going to go ahead and use this particular lens. And again, being it's an f2.8, the aperture allows you to go low enough to create that shallow depth of field. Now, if you don't have that, that's okay. If you have a 70 by 300, let's say it's a 5.8, right? Because not a lot of people have a 2.8. Again, I would never have this lens either if the girls didn't play basketball and I wanted to get good zoom shots of them. That's why I bought the lens. So now it's working out for me. It's actually going to pay some bills maybe. All right. So, if you have a 70 by 300 lens, there's also a way to get this effect. And the way you get it is zoom that lens out to 300 millimeters. Get a little closer to your subject, and then you're going to change the background. You're going to change that shallow depth of field in the background, and you're going to actually start blurring that background out. Now, as we've seen today, the fourth way to get that same type of picture, this is a little off the wall. If you have a point and shoot camera, this is my handy dandy point and shoot camera. Again, get closer to your subject, get closer in. Make sure the background is far enough away. Zoom your lens all the way out as far as it'll go. Get closer in. And you should be able to even see it in the viewfinder. You should see the back of it blur out a little bit. Now, with that said, the last way that I know of, the fifth way. The fifth way you're going to do this is to go into your photo editor. Whatever editor you have is going to do this. I've done this successfully with Picasa. That's free. By no means, I teach Photoshop elements, but I by no means tell you have to own it. So anybody that comes here, if you come to this group or if you come to this live thing, we teach it here, but you can use any editor. I mean, if you can't afford elements, that's fine, but edit your pictures. We wanted to talk just a few minutes about editing and about pictures. I've been taking photographs for a long, long time. Probably as long as most of you have been taking photographs, right? Long time. You probably have hundreds of thousands of photographs in your photo gallery. Wherever you keep those pictures, you have a lot of pictures. I've been taking weddings for a long time, and I've been really impressed with some wedding shots I come home with. With that said, and I don't want to rub anybody the wrong way here, but, and we try to. We all try to be very professional with our cameras, and we try to do our best, and I preach this. When you get it right in camera, you don't need to edit the picture. When you get it right in camera, you don't need to edit your picture. But flip that now. I've been taking pictures a long time, thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of wedding shots, and every single picture that I touch looks more impressive after I do something to it. Not that it wasn't a great picture before. I could have probably sold to the client and said, here's your photo. But when I get that in that editor and I start tweaking, and I start dropping the exposure, I start whitening the eyes, they make them pop, it's just more impressive. I mean, so do you have to edit every picture? Probably not. Are you going to touch every picture? Absolutely. If you guys take pictures professionally and don't run them through your editor and look at them, sorry, sad to say, that's bad business. The last wedding we shot 1,058 shots with 2 cameras going all day and into the night. 1,058 pictures I went through, one at a time. You look at those things first. You just go through them really quickly. Lightroom allows me to do this now after learning it. I can create a workflow where I can scan through those pictures and say, look, keep, flag, unflag, flag, trash, do whatever. Click on flag, that's everyone I want to keep. Everything that's blurry or it doesn't look quite right, or a bird flew into your shot, like, you may kiss a bride and a bird flies between your shot. Not a good picture. A hummingbird lands on their ear, starts pecking their side of their ear, for feed, or I don't know. But so run all your pictures through the editor. I mean, it's good business. It's good practice for you to learn. So there you have it. That's my rant on that. So, okay, folks. So your actual assignment for this week is basically, what we want to do is we want to capture something with that shallow depth of field. It doesn't have to be a person. I've successfully done this. I've taken my gnome outside. I did this with a gnome. I've done this in the past with objects such as fence posts, deck posts, flowers. You've seen the flowers during the actual slideshow there that Ginger called a flower, and was able to actually take that and make that background actually blurred or change the depth of field. So that's the assignment for this week, is a shallow depth of field, either in camera or in editor. And we just need the picture that you create. We don't need the original and that. We just want the picture you create. And this should be one of our biggest assignments yet. I don't think we should have any trouble. Everybody should be able to get this one done. Once again, thanks to everybody out there for watching Jack's Tech Corner each and every week here. I'm glad you made it again for another photo. I'm glad you made it again another week for another Photography Weekly. Next week will be our 1 year, 52 weeks celebration. So bring all your noisemakers, bring your firecrackers, and we're going to have a great time here, a great show next week. We're going to have to do something interesting and spectacular for this actual show. So that's next week. So until then, as always, keep those shutters clicking. Keep your editors editing. Hey, download the new CS6 and Lightroom and see what you think. And I'll see you back here next week on Jack's Tech Corner for another Photography Weekly. Bye for now. So long.